Sekeres price for Wednesday, August the 6th. No Sekeres and, well, no price. You've got Jeff Paterson. You got Patrick Johnston, the Post Media. You know what they say, PJ? Show must go on. And look, those guys have earned some holiday time, so it's going to be you and me. We're going to have Farhan a little bit later on as well. And yeah, it's the first week of August, but we got some things to talk about.
Vitali Kravtsov? Thomas Müller? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, maybe not in that. I would flip the order, although, look, we'll get to that in a sec here. I'm in the Nation Network studio in the historic Wall Center in the heart of downtown Vancouver. Show is a presentation of Bet365. Started out as a gloomy August day. It's looking a little bit better out there, although much of the province can use the rainfall, so yep. I'm not going to complain. I know you were out in the wilderness over the long weekend. How was the camping trip?
Beautiful. We arrived literally, I think, in the 1 hour of sort of steady rain that they got at Manning Park on Thursday. But after that, we had sprinkle on Friday. Saturday, Sunday were absolutely glorious. Lots of time at the lake. Had a great time. Little hike. Can't complain.
It's been a pretty good summer on the weather front. It's been a very good summer for the Vancouver Whitecaps, and it got better officially today. More on that in a moment. Just after we signed off yesterday, got a little Canucks news, so our first chance to digest that. Vitali Kravtsov, remember him? He's back. And so our Bogey Juice poll question today, will Vitali Kravtsov play 20 games for the Vancouver Canucks next season? It's a simple yes or no question, and don't take it like too literally. This isn't, is he going to play 20 and only 20, not 19, not 21. It means, will he eclipse the 20-game mark as a member of the National Hockey League's Vancouver Canucks? Because he's on a two-way deal, so Abbotsford could factor in here. We'll see about that. But the poll question, it's up now. You can vote on it, yes or no. It's brought to you by Bogey Juice. And we've been telling you about the original Bogey Juice for a while now, but there are rumblings about a new flavor of Bogey Juice on the way, so looking forward to that, and we'll let you know when it's available. In the meantime, if you're looking for a fresh summer drink, grab the sweet taste of Bogey Juice, a blend of crisp apple and ginger mixed with vodka and simple syrup. Great on its own or over ice. You can check it out online, bogeyjuice.com. We mentioned it there in the poll question. It might be the only time in his life that Vitali Kravtsov is a lead story. It comes with the territory at this time of year. Kravtsov's second stint with the Canucks, maybe our lead item, but it's not officially our top story. No, that belongs to the Whitecaps, and the top story brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, and Foolish Winery. And yes, it is finally official. It's the worst kept secret. We just wondered it was a matter of when, not if. But the Caps have announced the Thomas Müller signing. Did it with a slickly produced video, sending the 35-year-old attacking midfielder his new Whitecaps kit over in Munich. And we now know Müller's going to wear number 13 for the Whitecaps.
Number he's worn for Germany. Mm-hmm. Just a reminder. Golden Boot winner 2010. I mean, the scale of this signing, I mean, obviously, I told my daughter, Molly, this morning, oh, they signed Messi. I'm like, no, they didn't sign Messi. Signed this other guy named Thomas Müller, who's been one of the most elite finishers in world soccer over the last 15 years. He's slowed down a little bit. Admittedly, he is 35. But this guy literally created a position on his own. It's a position that is known as Raumdeuter, which means space investigator, Jeff.
I love it.
Imagine the Canucks signing a player who invents his own position. Anyway, this guy's going to be a very... I mean, there's no reason to think this is not a massive, massive addition for the Whitecaps. A team that already moves the ball well. Now they've got an extra attacking weapon to put in there. Obviously, Ryan Gault's still not back from an injury, so this is a big addition for the lineup. Supposed to get here next week. We'll see if he plays August 17th at home. That is the next home game. Whitecaps did hype that up in their release. I found that interesting. I think the plan is to try to at least have him in the match day squad for that day. But yeah, exciting addition for a team that is doing lots of good things, and I think is slowly but surely drawing notice this season. Certainly built a bit of a buzz last year with Vanni Sartini, but the way Jesper Sorensen has taken this team to the next level has made a difference, and you see it in the buzz and the energy around this team, and this signing matches that.
And credit where it's due. I just thought, we mentioned the video that the club produced, but just a really, and look, they had the benefit of time because the news was out there, but really well, I thought, just the rollout here, like the press release, documented his history. You touched on it there. I mean, all the trophies. Yeah. But beyond that, within the press release, there was a link to the Whitecaps store, so you could buy a Muller jersey already. It was a really slickly produced whole operation here. And again, I think he's worthy of that sort of treatment. He looks like a content machine. Like, this guy's playing along. He's all in. And so on a marketing level, they couldn't have asked for a whole lot more. Ultimately, it's going to come down to what he does on the field. And even at 35, though, I love the fact that he was out of contract with Bayern, and yet he was back there training with Bayern this week. As you said, he's scheduled to arrive next Wednesday. Introductory media conference and first training session on Thursday. And he himself, in one of the videos that's been posted here, he says August 17th that he expects that to be his first game. So that's a home date against Houston, and it now takes on added significance because it looks like that's going to be the debut of the Space Invader? No, what Space Creator?
Space Investigator.
Space Investigator. Space Invaders was something else. That's from my childhood. Sorry. I'm excited. I think hardcores understand, but this is, geared toward the casuals as well. And I just think a massive win. And they've done a lot of winning this year, but this is another big W for the Vancouver Whitecaps.
I see Mike's popped into the chat there to give his comparison of Muller in NHL terms. Patrice Bergeron. That's not a bad comparison, Mike. Look at you. You've been thinking about this.
It was AI.
He is a unique player. He's a guy that he's not fast. He's an amazing dribbler. But he shows up in all the right spots. He's just that guy that knows where the seams are, and he drags defenses with him. He opens up space for other players. He is just a very, very, very highly intelligent player who has scored tons of goals because of it for his national team, for Bayern, one of the big teams in Europe. And even at the age of, he'll be 36 in September, but even at the age of 35, he is going to be a big, significant influence on this Whitecaps team.
All right, so what are we to make of MLS coming out with its own post about this signing? Thomas Müller with his bags packed, and apparently he's coming to the Couve, PJ, in the eyes of the somebody in MLS social department thinking that they were cool and hip, and the Couve, I don't know. I'm not sure that I'm buying what MLS is laying down there.
On the Couve, I have a buddy, Mike McGurr, years ago, 22 years ago, was the pitch for the Vancouver Canadians. Mike's originally from Boston. Obviously the whole roster was Americans, and he said they'd sit there in the bullpen and they'd see guys from other teams not understanding how huge the Nat is. And they'd say, "Oh, that's not getting out of the Couve." It's definitely something that people, I think, from the East Coast, U.S. East Coast, love calling this town. But it's part of a big week for Major League Soccer. We've got LAFC signing Son. That's coming out. They are really orchestrating the whole week's rollout with the summer transfer window opening up. And it's a big deal. It is a big deal. They wanted this player. It wasn't just the Whitecaps. The league wanted this player to come in. Didn't want to lose him to another sort of. MLS obviously gets, when they make signings like this, they do get the suggestion it's a retirement league. But let's be fair. This is when these players are available. These kinds of guys they can get, the Messis of the world and Suarez's of the world. They didn't want to lose him to Australia. I think that's to bring him in. So they were as excited as the Whitecaps were. As I think Manu Veth was on last week with Matt and Blake explained, obviously, yep. They bent the rules to make this one happen for the Whitecaps. He's going to be a designated player next year. Can't be one this year because of how they're. It is nuts, Jeff. You think trying to understand how LTIR works in hockey is complicated? The way Major League Soccer's rosters are set up and the exemptions they have and the salary cap and all these things. I can't even begin to explain how this all works, but I can tell you that his salary this year on the books is very low. His salary on the books next year is very high, And that's all you need to know. He is a star player, and he is going to be expected to be a star player for this team.
Well, there it is. It is official. Thomas Müller, a member of the Vancouver Whitecaps, under contract, signed, sealed, soon to be delivered next week and on the pitch, the training pitch at the very least, next Thursday. And, you know, that's going to attract a fair bit of attention. And then again, we all will circle August 17th, the home date against Houston, as quite likely Muller's MLS debut. The top story brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing and Neighborhood Brewing. I was in Penticton a couple of weeks back, stopped by Neighborhood. Our group grabbed a couple of the comfy sofas out on the patio. Great way to spend a summer evening. Looking forward to getting back there for Canucks training camp. If you're in the southern Okanagan, make sure you check out Yellow Dog and Neighborhood. Speaking of Canucks training camp, Vitali Kravtsov is going to be there. 1 year, two-way deal. News came down mid-afternoon yesterday. 25-year-old winger, a complete non-factor, PJ, in the 16 games he played for the Canucks at the end of the 2022-23 season. Picked up in a trade for Will Lockwood. Scored once, set up one other goal. He's been a bust in the NHL after being selected 9th overall by the Rangers back in 2018. And, of course, that was 2 picks after the Canucks landed Quinn Hughes. So it just shows you the variance you can find in the top 10 of a National Hockey League draft. But this is the reason the Canucks are going down Kravtsov Boulevard. He had a big season in the KHL. He scored 27 goals, 58 points, 66 games for Chelyabinsk Tractor, scored 6 more goals in the playoffs as his team got to the league final. So Kravtsov back on a 1-year deal. The important part is it's a 2-way contract, $775 at the NHL level, but $450,000 in the minors. Like, that is real money that the hockey club has to pay out. So we'll see where he goes and where he plays, and that's why we're asking the poll question about 20 games. Does he even get to 20 games? Because he didn't last time here. Now, that was the end of the season. They ran out of games, but only played the 16. He's only played more than 20 games in an NHL season once in his career. So you tell me why Vitali Kravtsov can be successful the second time around.
Well, as I was fiddling along with the story that I'm filing on this, I asked Dan Milstein yesterday, what's the biggest reason he's coming? And he says, good, fresh sushi. And he said, no, use that. And I took it to, I thought about it. I'm like, what do you mean, man? Like, Chelyabinsk is a long way from the ocean. I mean, we laughed about it. He said, no, go ahead. That is a huge reason. Listen, he liked being here. I think he got a big offer from Chelyabinsk. It's funny. He's originally from Vladivostok, which is obviously on the Pacific coast. Chelyabinsk is about as far from the ocean as you can get in Russia. You look at the map; it's east of the Urals. There's if you're into your World War II history, this is where all the tanks were made. There's a reason why it was important, because it was on the other side. There was no possible way anybody would ever invade there. It's barely, it's 100 or so kilometers from Kazakhstan. It is not an exciting place. So clearly part of the reason is just a chance to get back to, obviously, North America, to the NHL. The other thing that stands out to me, Jeff, is you've already said it. Like, 2 full seasons, 27 goals this past season. Had a decent first season back, but really found his way. He finally got to be a leading player for this team, for a team, any team. He hasn't been the guy. And a little bit of this is a bit of the Vasily Podkolzin story. He hadn't been a chance to be the guy since he was in junior, right? Whether that was playing, his first couple seasons after getting drafted with Chelyabinsk, whether he was in the AHL with Hartford when he came over, he went back. He's been back a couple times. He's struggled with the transition. Maybe there were some maturity issues there. I went and looked at the story I wrote about him. I think he was 10 games in, near the end of the season in 2022-23. And I talked to Sergei Gonchar then. And, Sergei said, here's a guy that hasn't had a lot of trust put in him. And we see a guy that needs to feel valued, and he's a young player, and obviously that's 2 years ago, and it's a different coaching staff. Adam Foote knows him a little bit, obviously, from when he came in, but a team that was very much in transition. Jim Rutherford at the time had said, let's throw some darts at former prospects who maybe need a second chance. You said it, Jeff. He did not show much. Even if you go find that one goal he was credited with, he was trying to pass it to Sheldon Dries. Remember Sheldon Dries? Trying to pass to Sheldon Dries. It hit Seth Jones on the way towards the net, and he ended with a power play goal. 1 assist. A nice pass to Brock Besser, but that was it. Just no spark in his game. Not a guy that turned the corner. Not the guy that attacked the net. I mean, we even see that at least with Vasily Podkolzin. Obviously, Podkolzin struggled to score and struggled to finish, but there were moments of brilliance where you'd see it from him, and you could see why he had a successful season in Edmonton just because of those bits. We never saw that from Kravtsov. We saw a player who just had no confidence, didn't really know what he was doing when he had the puck. Clearly, he figured this out this year, and this is a low risk, high reward bet by Patrick Allvin that a player that they obviously liked before could make a difference.
Right. So there isn't huge downside here, but I do think it's an admission that the roster as constructed is still lacking offensive upside, and this team's willing to roll the dice that a guy who didn't do anything here the first time around has matured. Now, it looked like he found himself in a good spot, as you said, and had a chance and found people around him that believed in him over in the KHL. The fact that Adam Foote was here, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Like, he's familiar with the player, but Kravtsov's got to outplay this first impression, and I think that's going to be difficult for him. So we'll see what happens. I'm really curious. I'm always curious at training camp to see where guys like this are slotted. Like, remember last year in Penticton, Atu Ratu from day one with Connor Garland and Nils Höglander, they put him between NHLers. Like, that gave you a sense of what the organization thought about the opportunity and the player. So I'm curious to see right from day one, like, where does a guy like Kravtsov slot in? Because if he can bring those KHL numbers, there probably is an opportunity for him here. But it's one of those things, too, that a guy like this can't be to be too successful, I don't think he can be a fourth liner. So he's got to play higher in your lineup. But is there a spot higher in the lineup? They got Besser, they got DeBrus, they've got Evander Kane now. I would think Höglander's ahead of him. Connor Garland. All of a sudden, you're running out of winger spots in the top 9 for this hockey club. And even at that, it's a hockey club that still has lots of questions about it. So where ultimately does a guy like this slot in, and where is he going to get this opportunity?
Is he going to get more minutes than Kiefer Sherwood if he makes the NHL roster, right? Like, you look at the role he's going to be asked to play, and in many ways it feels like this is kind of if one of the top wingers gets hurt, maybe he can slot in there. You know, we need someone to fill in. It's hard to imagine him slotting in on the fourth line, but hey, stranger things have happened. The fourth line is now used as a bit more of a holding position for players that could be useful elsewhere in the lineup. Certainly, he's got the pedigree and the expectation that he should be a creative player with the puck. So if he can do something with the puck on the power play, maybe he's a power play too. I mean, I feel like I'm describing Daniel Sprong way, except of course Daniel Sprong had a scoring record in the NHL.
Yeah, totally.
So it's a bit of a funny one. It's a dart throw. Maybe he starts the season in the NHL, has an incredible run, and he can be an extra factor in the NHL as the season plays along. But certainly, we're not looking at this roster as a guy that he has, or we're not looking at him as a guy that has made this roster even at this point, projecting out.
Stefan Roger over at Canucks Army had an interesting piece looking at sort of cohorts and comparables, guys that have come over in their mid-20s after seasons in the KHL, and it really is a mixed bag, and Andrei Kuzmenko and Ilya Mikheyev end up being near the top of the list of success stories, and of course they were Milstein guys, and so there is a little bit of continuity in that regard, but there are also a lot of cases of guys that come over, try it, and then go right back home. So he's already done that once. We'll see what happens, and I do wonder, where is his appetite? It's a two-way contract. It can be buried in the minors easily because it's the NHL league minimum. We talked about the $450 in the minors, but what's his appetite to play in the American Hockey League? And if he was sent down, that $450 probably keeps other teams from claiming him off waivers. That's a healthy salary in the American Hockey League. So again, there's a lot of moving parts here with Vitali Kravtsov. He signed, I'm sure, to make the Vancouver Canucks, but he's going to have his work cut out for him in that regard. You mentioned Daniel Sprong. You're right. And what happened to Daniel Sprong? It didn't work out here. The Canucks moved off him pretty quickly. So we shall see how that all plays out. Also, Kravtsov needs 16 games next season in the NHL. Otherwise, Canucks will lose his right to become a Group 6 free agent. Right. So we'll see what happens. The last time around, 13 minutes and 3 seconds in a game against San Jose. That was his high watermark for ice time as a member of the Vancouver Canucks. So it's another body. You wonder if, like, does this do anything to, throw an obstacle to a player like Jonathan Lecker-Mackey? Look, there's been a ton of turnover in Abbotsford. Like, they're going to have a totally different look down there. If Kravtsov winds up not making the Vancouver Canucks, I would hope for his sake that he would go to Abbotsford, and he'd be a top line guy there for certain. So again, a lot to be determined, lots to see how things play out for Vitali Kravtsov.
Abbotsford's suddenly looking very young. Like, if you look at that depth chart, Lekkerimäki 21, Henri Ravinsky's 22, Ty Mueller 22, Chase Stillman 22, Josh Bloom 22, Jalil Klimovich 22, Vilmer Alderson 20. Then you get to Joe LeBate and Mackenzie McEachern, who are the old guys, but Kravtsov 25, Baines 24, Sasson 24. Nathan Smith is technically still on the roster, although we'll see what happens. He's a UFA. But yeah, Willander, Mancini, Kudryavtsev, Minio, those guys are all 23 and under. Jet Wu 25. It's a team that certainly is in transition. I don't think they're going to repeat as Calder Cup champions, given the lack of veterans. Usually you need some veterans in there. But Kravtsov's going to, if he goes there, he'll have a ton of playing time. Like, he is going to be leaned on as a guy with NHL experience, a guy who has been literally around the world of hockey, knows what is and isn't, and obviously a player that they see as having the right kind of character and right kind of attitude to come back and fight for a spot, because that's literally what he's going to have to do. And maybe that is exactly like you said. Maybe that is exactly what Jonathan Lekkerimäki and those kinds of guys need to see. This is a player who has seen the other side and knows what it means. And
I think he's got a couple of things working in his favor. One is that he does seem, he's older, that much we know for a fact, but he does seem like he should be coming in with confidence, coming off the KHL seasons, and not just last year. As you said, the previous one was solid, but he did have a breakout. But also, when you get traded late in the season to a team that's going nowhere, the vibes weren't great around the Vancouver Canucks. No. I'm hoping that the vibes are better this time around, but there'd just be a comfort level, the familiar faces walking into the locker room, all those types of things. It's not like getting traded mid-season and starting from scratch in a new organization in a new city. So he's come to a place that he's familiar with, even to the head coach, who was the assistant then. But, we'll see how all that works out for Vitali Kravtsov. We've probably spent more time talking about him than we ought to have. But, again, these things happen in early August when there isn't a whole lot else going on around the National Hockey League. Blake and I spent a fair bit of time yesterday sort of looking at the long list for the Olympics that came out over the weekend. 42 Canadian players invited to this orientation camp later in the month in Calgary. I don't know if you had a look at it. I'm just wondering if anything jumped out at you in terms of surprises or omissions, or, does this speak to Canada coming off the Four Nations and the success there, having a sense of what it takes to get it right in Milano next February?
Not really. 92 players. It's hard to miss anybody, right? It was always going to be an impressive group. We mustn't forget the success in February, like the Four Nations. Obviously there was the huge political dimension that hung over it that wasn't there when they first planned it. But yeah, it was an exciting event that the players bought into, and we know they're going to be excited to go to Milan. And it's always cool to see these kinds of things, guys get together, and it's those battles on the edge that are always going to be the more fascinating ones to me, just to sort of figure out who is going to be the guy and who is not going to be the guy. I'm excited. I'm just excited to see them get together and start contemplating how this all works. I remember, even as a young kid, it's years ago, but, what seemed like, I guess, the months-long Canada Cup training camps, there's a hint of that. But yeah, how's this all going to shake out? Who's going to go with who? And it's an exciting reminder of we're getting the best hockey back at the Olympics after a decade-long hiatus that just should never have been there.
A couple other hockey notes that I want to get to here, and we were talking about the Olympics yesterday. It was the feature of the focus of the poll question on yesterday's program. We'll recap the results a little bit later on here, but I don't know if you saw this over the weekend. Matthew Tkachuk is the cover boy for EA NHL 26, which, look, it makes sense on a lot of levels. This guy's a two-time Stanley Cup winner now, star-level player with a big personality, name recognition, resonates with younger fans, except I do wonder, does it prevent fans in other markets from buying the video game just because Matthew Tkachuk's mug is on the cover? But look, he's earned it, right? I mean, he's risen to that level. We talked about Four Nations and the role that he played there. Certainly in that preliminary round game between Canada and the U.S. was in the middle of everything that started right off the hop there. But I thought that part of it was funny as well, that Matthew's the standalone on just the standard cover of NHL 26. Right. But the deluxe version, it's a family edition, and there you can see they got Keith back on skates and in uniform along with Brady. So father and two sons.
Keith there.
Yeah, there may have been a little photoshopping on some places, but anyways, look, the Tkachuk family has risen to a level that probably warrants this kind of opportunity for them.
It's a good story. I mean, the brothers are, they are so notorious around the league, but they're very much the face of the game. And Matthew Tkachuk deserves to be playing in a place that you and I have been more than once and seen what it can be like. Even when I mean, that was when was the last time we were there? Was it 2020? Anyway, it's long before the Stanley Cup era. That's for sure, and we have seen what those stands can look like, even when, I mean, the team was not bad, but it wasn't a star team. And the stands were pretty empty. And that's a team that has put together a fan base, is showing success. And Matthew Tkachuk is the face of that success. And they are the Stanley Cup champions. I mean, him holding the trophy says everything. I mean, obviously Sasha Barkov is still the best player on that team. But Tkachuk isn't far behind. And the way he influences the game is very much in line with what every team in the NHL wants to be. So it makes sense to me that he's there.
I saw some people suggesting, and they weren't knocking Matthew Tkachuk as the choice, but they were suggesting that Johnny Gaudreau should have been on next season's cover. And I just, like, from a marketing standpoint in EA, I think that's a tough ask. I get it. I get the sentiment. And I mean, I think the NHL and Columbus did an incredible job of recognizing and honoring Johnny at every opportunity, and USA Hockey with his jersey hanging in the locker room at Four Nations and all those types of things. But at the end of the day, it is business for EA Sports, and I don't know necessarily that aligns with their vision for the video game. So I hear where people are coming from, but they elected to go in a different direction.
It's in the end, inevitably, it's about projecting forward, and that's what this choice is about. This is a player that is where the league is going and what the league is right now, and it makes sense to me.
And finally, we often dump on the NHL and its teams for the way they go about their business, and a lot of times it's warranted. But I thought a really cool scene on Long Island over the weekend with Matthew Schaefer, who was the first pick in the draft. And, of course, part of his story is that he lost his mother at a relatively, I mean, he's still at a young age, but lost his mother to cancer. The Islanders invited 20 kids who themselves had lost a parent at a young age, and they invited those kids into the locker room to be present, to meet and greet with Matthew Schaefer. And then the kids got to watch Schaefer sign his first NHL contract. So good on the Islanders. I think they're trying to turn a page there, move on from Lou Lamoriello. It's Matthew Darche now making the decisions. And I just thought, what a great initiative to find 20 kids who've dealt with way too much at an early age in their lives. And you're trying to find that next generation of hockey fans, make that instant connection with the guy that went first overall in June's draft. So kudos to the New York Islanders.
Yeah, I mean, a throwback a little bit to when they had Travis Hamonic there, who started his D Partner program in, I think, 2012. which was to bring a kid in who lost a parent and recognize them, because it was a personal thing for him. Obviously, his father died when he was young. So, it's something that's known to the Islanders and perhaps a bit associated with them, looking out for kids like this. And so, yeah, absolutely huge credit to them.
All right, it's time now for the menu, and the menu is brought to you by Greta Bar YVR, and here's what's coming up on today's show. Farhan Lalji of TSN is going to stop by. We'll get into some Lions talk. The Leos are in Hamilton tomorrow, and he always says he doesn't like talking hockey in the middle of summer, but we're going to twist his arm. He's not going to have a choice, so we'll get a few thoughts on what the Canucks have done and what they haven't done. So Farhan is coming up shortly here on the program, and then the final segment, news and notes on the Lions, the Vancouver Canadians, Canada's newest tennis sensation, who's back on court tonight in Montreal, and whatever else we can squeeze in before we're done. The menu, a presentation of Greta Bar. Great place for fun, whether you're out with friends or maybe you're looking for a spot to hold your next corporate outing. Greta loves corporate groups, and here's the thing, corporate groups love Greta. You get out of the office, you let your hair down, you have some fun with the arcade games, do a little bonding, some team building. Hey, maybe you learn something about Kathy from accounting or Jim from the service department. I'm not making any guarantees on that. I'm just saying. Greta Bar YVR, 50 West Cordova Street, Greta Bar. Let the games begin. Sekeres and Price is brought to you by Bet365. It's time now for our bets of the day, and I will defer to you on this one. I'll let you go. I've got one of my own, but where are you looking on the Bet365 menu?
As people know, whenever I come on and I'm asked to do this, I try to pick something that's a little off the usual beaten path. And I sat there and thought, Canada's kicking off the Women's Rugby World Cup on August 23rd, later this month. They beat New Zealand earlier this summer. It is a huge moment for Canadian women's rugby. And I'm going with win outright. Whoa. It's a futures bet. Win outright. They are in the mix to be in the final. England are the heavy favorites. England are the fully professional outfit. Right behind them is New Zealand. But I am looking at Canada to pull out the huge upset. They're paying 7 even to win.
All right.
So let's go with that.
Okay. I mentioned the Lions. We'll talk more about them with Farhan. Lions and Hamilton, it's that cat fight. It's a rematch of what happened here at BC Place, a terrific football game a couple of weeks ago. Leos are 3-point underdogs, so they're going to have their work cut out for them. You can get them at plus 140 on the money line. Whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app, get in on the game, use code NATION. Bet365 must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. Farhan Lalji from TSN joins us next here on Sekeres and Price.
Was that a swoop?
Yeah,
okay.
Good teaching.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what everybody says.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fun.
It almost like it's the club's fault. Too bad.
No,
How about to Redwoods? If you hit a bad shot, it's the club's fault, not your fault.
Step, other hand.
So he's saying practice makes perfect. That was awesome, Greg. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
That was
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sekeres and Price from the historic Wall Center, our featured guest today, brought to you by the Redwoods Golf Course out in Langley. And Get Ready Golf is the Redwoods adult group golf lesson for beginner golfers. 4 one-hour lessons over 4 weeks for $160. Relaxed, no-pressure way to learn the game of golf. And the next class starts on August 14th, so there's still time here to get enrolled. There's also private and semi-private adult lessons. They're available, flexible to your schedule. Group lesson info, check them out online, redwoods-golf.com/instruction. Our next guest doesn't need an introduction, but he's going to get one anyway. Farhan Lalji of TSN, back on Sekeres and Price without Sekeres and Price. As you can see, you got me and you got PJ here today. Hey, Farhan, just before we talk Lions in Hamilton tomorrow and a team that coming off the bye needs a win, I saw you were back in the broadcast booth doing play-by-play over the weekend, and I know you do that a handful of times throughout the year. Is that still something you enjoy doing?
Oh, I love it. And first of all, Sekeres and Price without Sekeres and Price is the best way to do the show, just for the record. JP and PJ, I will take that. No, I love those guys too. However, yeah, I love doing play-by-play. To be honest, I wish I could do a lot more of it, but we've got some people that are very good at it. And so I get, 2 to 3 games a year when needed. And I'd love to do more. This year it's tough. My son is, going to be a starter on his high school football team, and they play Friday night. So I basically told the network at the beginning of the year that when we get to the fall, there's no Fridays that I'm working or traveling. Like, it's just going to happen that way. And they understood, so I don't have to take like 12 separate vacation days on Fridays to make that work. But had that not happened, I probably would have had a few more play-by-play opportunities. But you only get a couple years to watch your kid do this, so I'm going to take advantage of that too.
All right, so you will watch from afar like the rest of us as the Lions invade the Hammer. Catfight rematch of a game here, an wildly entertaining game here that unfortunately got away from the Lions late. That's life in the CFL, but they've had the bye here. They've had a chance to lick their wounds and regroup and hopefully make some adjustments. Do you think from their perspective this is a good thing that they return to action with a rematch against a team that just beat them?
Yeah, I think they probably would have preferred it without the bye week and having to stew on that loss and the way it ended for an extra week. But yeah, I think it is. And generally when teams play back-to-back, they kind of hold a little bit back, right? I mean, that's a standard thing in the CFL, but you don't always get a bye in the middle. So I think this gives them an opportunity to dive deeper into where it went wrong and to potentially make some adjustments that normally when it's a regular back-to-back and you don't have that time, you don't have the opportunity to make. If that makes sense, right? So, I think you'll see a different look on both sides of the ball. Maybe not as much on offense because that offensively they did a lot of good things. But, I'm assuming they're pretty owly with how that last game ended.
Is it this simple? I mean, I look at the numbers. I see how few passing yards they've given up, and I see how many rushing yards they've given up. What's it going to take to fix this D-line?
Well, to be honest, PJ, it wasn't really that in the last game, right? I mean, it was how they finished the game, and They didn't give up huge amounts of rushing yardage in the last game. And, the metrics have been pretty good for them over the course of their full season, but in the last two games, hosting Hamilton, hosting Saskatchewan, they gave up a lot of passing yards, especially later in those football games. And that's got to change for this group, right? And I think the biggest issue with the defensive line is they don't generate enough pass rush with 4. And I understand that you're risking when you only bring 3 and 4 and a team can protect with 5 and 6. And, now you're hoping in coverage. But the Lions front 4 should be ready to do more. I mean, when the Lions face those looks, eventually teams get home and they get pressure. But for whatever reason, Bo Levi Mitchell could just pitch a tent in the back there. I don't think he needed to take a shower after the game. The D-line just didn't make it hard for him at all. So Matthew Betts gets paid a lot of money, right? Yeah. The guys they've got on the other side of the edges, on the interior, they've been around long enough. They have to get more because the secondary has some really young pieces. And if you have to blitz to get pressure, you're exposing those guys on the back end. So you're right, the defensive line does need to be better, but I don't know if it's just stopping the run. I think it's more gaining pressure with 4.
They're a 3-5 football team. I know that they believe they're better than that. And I guess as a professional athlete, you got to tell yourself that you are better than that. But there's that adage in pro sports as well that you are what your record says you are. As they approach the midway mark of the season, first year under Buck Pierce, what's your sense of the vibe around the BC Lions?
I think it's pretty good. I think it's a team that still has a lot of buy-in, going to practice a couple times a week as I do. Like, the energy there is noticeable, right? Like, I mean, usually I've seen teams that go through the ebbs and flows of a season, and during the ebbs, things are not necessarily good, and you'll see a few fights in the field, and you'll just see a team that's disconnected. And quite frankly, I think last year with this group, when it was a weird vibe when they had the 2 quarterbacks and the room was a little bit divided. There's none of that here, right? And you see the leadership that Nathan Rourke takes, and he gets the guys doing additional walkthroughs and spending time, and they're committed. Like, they're bought in. And they're buying into what is being told, right? And I also think this team has a ceiling. And I say that because there is newness. There's newness on the coaching staff. There's newness in the defensive secondary, as I mentioned. And there's some areas that I think by the end of the year, they're going to be significantly better. But right now, they're at the point, in my opinion, where they're going to need to win some shootouts. And their offense should be capable of doing that. Nathan Rourke and that receiving group and James Butler. I mean, the O-line's ordinary, but the rest of that group should be good enough that if they've got to win some shootouts to buy some time for the defense to get to where they need to get to, that should be a reasonable expectation, because I think if they can do that by the end of the year, this team could be pretty good.
Bo Levi Mitchell's season is remarkable. I mean, 3 interceptions through 8 games, 18 touchdowns already. where do we quantify what he is doing? Not just because he's at his age, but just in general as a CFL quarterback who's going to go down as one of the all-time greats.
You know, the three of us are old dogs, right? And sometimes you can't teach old dogs new tricks. Lord knows the Canucks have tried to make us teach new tricks, and that hasn't always been easy. That said, Bo's been able to do that, and that's the impressive part of what's happening, you know, in his mid-30s, because we thought 2 years ago his career was over, right? They don't his shoulder was shot, and then last year he wasn't necessarily buying into what Scott Milanovic wanted, and then he loses his job, and in the second half of the season he completely decides, okay, I got to figure this out. He gets the job back, plays great to finish the season, but a lot of low leverage games. Now this year he's been playing at a high level right out of the gates, right? And for him at this stage of his career to see the game differently, to process it differently, and to have a mind shift where I'm not just going to be a gunslinger. I'm going to go through progressions and make these decisions the way I'm doing it. I think it's remarkable. And I honestly think he's playing his best football now. And we talked about this with Tom Brady, that he probably played better football in his 40s than he did in his 20s. And right now, I certainly think in his mid-30s, Bo Levi is playing a lot better than he did in his peak seasons in Calgary when he was winning MOPs and Grey Cups.
We see this in all sports with guys that age. I mean, it really is just about dialing in and recognizing there is no spare, there's no room. You have to be dialed in on everything, isn't it?
Yeah, and you know, when you get to that stage, I think you take the game for granted less, right? Like, you know you're getting to the end, and you know you want to end it a certain way. Like, I'll be honest with you, I can tell you, Bo Levi Mitchell came into this season thinking this would be his last. There's no way it's going to be his last the way he's playing right now. Someone's going to offer him $500,000 to keep playing, and he's going to wind up taking it, right? So, yeah, it's just one of those things that when you get to the end, you appreciate the game more and you want to do whatever it takes. Like, you know, another example is Russell Wilson, right? Like, Russell Wilson won a Super Bowl early in his career, and then he spent the rest of his career chasing his legacy. And we would hear the comments about, you know, I still view myself as the best of all time, and this is what my legacy is. And then at the end of it, you're like, holy cow, like, my legacy is not good these last few years, and this is not how I want this to end. And then you kind of do what's needed to win, as opposed to, in his case, doing what he thought was needed for his brand and his legacy and all those things, right? And it just changes your perspective as you get towards the finish line.
I got a big picture question for you, because the Lions and the Whitecaps share BC Place. And the Caps, they're having a nice season. They're making noise. Obviously today, the Thomas Müller signing is official. There's all this talk about a standalone stadium. As we step back and look at BC Place as a home for the Lions, like, we know that the stadium is too big almost all the time, but there's a lot to like about BC Place as well. Like, where do you stand on BC Place as the home for the BC Lions?
I think it's fine. You know, and look, you can still create a pretty good atmosphere by filling the lower bowl like tight, and even filling the lower bowl and, you know, portions of the upper bowl is needed. I don't think there's a lack of atmosphere. I think the soccer folks tend to feel that a little bit more for whatever reason. I'm not sure why, but I don't think it's bad. I love the indoor part of BC Place, right? And as soccer tries to align itself more with the international calendar, you know, and I know that Axel Schuster's been on this show talking about it. Like, I think you want to be indoors if you've got that opportunity. And I do think the brief conversations the two clubs have had about potentially doing something together, you know, I think the Whitecaps want something much smaller than the Lions do. I think the Lions would kind of, you know, want to be in the high 20s if they were ever to build one. And I think the Whitecaps would like to very much be at around 20 if they could, and change demand that way. But for the Lions, I don't get a lot of complaints. You know, this is a stadium that has actually aged relatively well, and they've managed to keep up. And when you've got Olympics and now World Cups, you get to put some infrastructure and investment into it. You know, like, I go to Commonwealth and McMahon, and I you know, outdoor stadiums, and you go to the concourses and the amenities, like, it's bad. Like, it's just got an entirely different feel. BC Place, you know, and for me, having been to all the big stadiums that house NFL right now, like, BC Place has good amenities. There's a lot to like about it. It's aged well. So, you know, would it be great to have a 28,000 seat stadium like they do in Winnipeg or Saskatchewan? Sure, but on a rainy day, it's not going to be as good. Didn't we love Empire Field in 2011 and 2012? You know, even though it kind of felt like camping. But then the couple of rain days were like, oh, get me back inside. So I don't have a problem with BC Place.
I mean, Thomas Müller obviously doesn't either. He's coming here for at least a year and a half, and he said, "Oh, great, whatever. You got turf. Who cares?" Like that could have been a sticking point, and it obviously isn't. So the whole perspective of it as a facility, to me, that's just such a non-story. It's a big facility. There's obviously issues in terms of how their leases work and what have you, but fundamentally, it's a stadium that works. And you're absolutely right. You go on that concourse, Farhan, and it's no different than being in Seattle, being in Denver. Those are the two NFL stadiums I've been at. There's good food, there's good beer, it's lots of space. It's not narrow. You don't feel like I mean, that's a problem with Rogers Arena. It feels narrow at times. This one does not. So it's a facility that I think you're absolutely right. Fundamentally does not have a problem. I think if you figured out a way to get grass in that stadium, and I know that'd be hard for a football team, but if you figure out a way to get grass in that stadium,
PJ, truly, the football team would love it.
Yeah.
Like, the Lions practicing on grass, they love that. Like, that's a benefit to them. So if BC Place would be the best of all worlds because you don't have to worry about mud, right? Like, it's the outdoor grass fields where it rains and now you've got to play football on mud, and then the soccer folks hate that. So I don't think you would have any issue with the BC Lions playing 9 home games on grass at BC Place if that could be worked out. I mean, I don't know that it can long. The costs associated with developing grass indoors, it's difficult for these two franchises because it's not like Vegas and Arizona where they grow grass inside, they wheel it in, but there's just so much money around the NFL. MLS and the CFL aren't the same, so economically it's tough for the stadium to justify.
And you look at all the soccer teams that played in stadiums like that, and they truck their grass in. It's the same exact problem. You're right. Fundamentally, it's a cost issue, and unless they can figure that out, it's not going to happen.
Speaking of home schedules, Farhan, do you know? I mean, I know the Lions have been doing a ton of work behind the scenes, but next summer, are we any closer to knowing what the Lions' home schedule is going to look like with the World Cup here?
Yeah, I would imagine that of the 6 weeks, they're probably going to be on the road for at least 4 of them. And then I think they're going to try to create an out-of-town solution, right? They're going to have to. So whether that's creating something in the Lower Mainland or going to Victoria or the Okanagan, my bet is it's going to be one venue that hosts 2 BC Lions games elsewhere in BC, and then at least 4 road games during that stretch. I don't know that there's any other way to navigate it because you don't want 6 games away from home. But, I mean, you never know. Some teams might buy home games from them. It could go a number of different ways, but I do think it's going to be some configuration like that. 4 road games and 2 games in BC, but away from the Dome.
Now, you knew coming on a show with me and Patrick, and look, let the record show you were the first guy to drop a Canucks reference in this segment here. So you're not getting off that easily. I know you've got this personal,
Hey, listen, just for the record,
that you don't.
I have said to Sekeres and Price, because, they pay their regulars like you two. When I'm come in as a one-off, I don't. I said, if you're making me talk Canucks, I'm billing, and that's just that's the way.
Send them a bill.
I got to be paid to talk about the hockey team. I don't have to be paid to talk football. So everybody's
send them a bill and tell them that PJ and I said double your regular rate. How about that?
Done. Love it.
Look, it's been a relatively quiet off season. It seems like this is a team that's counting on good health and bounce backs for a number of players under the guidance of a rookie head coach. Does that sound like a plan for you?
You mean the no plan? You know what? I feel like it's the best plan available to them because they couldn't make the move for the center ice position that they wanted as far as an upgrade, right? We like what this team offers on the back end. For me, the Evander Kane, Brock Besser moves and the timing and everything like that, I think, reeks of reactive management, not proactive management, right? Because you go through that. I think we all believe that when the Evander Kane thing happened, that Besser was done. I think they believe that. And, but now it's, then when they double down, it just screams like, okay, what are we doing here? Like, how does this make sense? They're going to count on internal improvement. And it's the same thing that Jim Benning said 2 years ago, right? A lot's got to go right for this team to make the playoffs. And I got to be honest, I don't hate it. And I say that I don't hate it because I just think teams don't do enough to give younger players in their pipeline an opportunity. Now, I'm not naive enough to think this was entirely orchestrated and the Canucks are taking an altruistic approach. I think they have no choice but to take this approach. But I'm interested to see what happens with a healthy dose of Lekramaki and Achu Ratu and some of these players that have done everything they could do and are now just waiting for that next opportunity, right? So, I don't think it's horrible, but I do think it's reactive. And, I don't know that there's another way to look at it.
Well, we won't have to wait a whole lot longer. It is August now, so
and just for the record, I think it's quiet because they've chosen that, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, again, we'll see what. There's still a little time here to tinker with them, and we saw the Kravtsov. I mean, you giving him any chance of making this hockey club?
No, I'm not. When I just look at the forwards and where they're aligned, I mean, if he was a natural right-handed center, we'd probably have a different conversation. But, I know that wing is probably where he belongs, and I don't see it. I mean, at least they signed him to a two-way deal. I think that was a positive. So they're not stuck. And I think this group did so well in Abbotsford last year. And I know some of them are veterans, and, it's not like PDG's got to be on this roster. But there's some young guys that I want to see what happens when they get a chance. It's probably the coach in me that appreciates development and opportunities for younger players.
All right. Well, we'll finish the way we started. Do you have other play-by-play assignments that you know of? Like we would see you back?
The 22nd, I want to say, I'm in Calgary to do Saskatchewan at Calgary, which will be a big game in the West. So looking forward to that one. Looking forward to watching the Lions and looking forward to the NFL preseason starting tomorrow. I know they had the Hall of Fame game, but, the Seahawks, I wanted to get down there, but because the Lions are playing at the same time, I've kind of got to have my eye on that instead. But I was looking forward to seeing Pete Carroll coming back to Seattle, and NFL preseason starting should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I saw you making the rounds, doing training camps last week. Always on the go. You're always somewhere. We're glad that your somewhere was here today with us. As always, Farhan, thanks for this. We'll catch up soon.
See you, boys.
There you go. Farhan Lalji of TSN stopping by here on Sekeres and Price. Sekeres and Price from the historic Wall Center, and this place was hopping over the long weekend, and for good reason. It is the center of all the action here in downtown Vancouver. It's close to shops and restaurants, the theaters district, Rogers Arena, BC Place, the short walk to Stanley Park and the city's beaches, so you name it. This is about as central as it gets, and there's still plenty of time left in summer, and that means there's time to get in on the Sekeres and Price rate. Give the Wall Center a call, 604-331-1000. Some blackout dates apply, subject to availability. And again, thanks to Farhan for joining us, and we talked about it with Farhan there, Pat. Catfight in the Hammer tomorrow, 4:30 Pacific time is the kickoff. And I don't know if you've seen this, but the Hamilton Ticats are saluting Shea Gilgeous-Alexander during this one. So, yeah, a little CFL NBA crossover. You don't get that every day, but certainly when you think of athletes in this country that deserve a salute, it is the NBA's MVP. So, Shea Day in the Hammer on Thursday.
I thought it was a great idea. I mean, we bring in, the Lions bring in musical acts to open the season. I suppose if we had an NBA MVP, league champion, we'd find a way. I think it's great. And shout out to Hamilton for celebrating itself. Great old town that has a great old sports tradition.
Well, and it's funny too. SGA was born in Toronto, but he was raised in Hamilton. He went to high school in Hamilton. This isn't a case of the Ticats reaching to salute a guy who played high school ball a couple of towns over. No, he's got strong Hamilton. He's from the Hammer. So,
I just want to imagine him climbing the steps. My wife lived there for a little while, and so years ago we went and stopped off in Hamilton. She showed me the escarpment. You go see the escarpment up there, and there's these stairs. And I just like to imagine him getting his fitness training, running the stairs. I'm sure he did something way more impressive than that, but that on its own, I like to imagine him being the small town guy working his way up, or a hard-working blue-collar town guy working his way on those stairs.
Well, whatever he did in his formative years, it seems to have worked out okay for him and the OK City Thunder. Vancouver Canadians had a couple of opponents last night. They had Hillsborough. They also had Mother Nature. Seas fell behind early and then had to wait out a weather delay. They mounted a pretty good push in the end, fell 10-7 out of the net, but they did have the tying run at the plate in the bottom of the ninth. Fingers crossed that they're going to be able to get in tonight's game, 7:05, first pitch. Make sure that you're following the Seas on social for all of the latest. They're home all week. There's a nooner on Friday, fireworks on Saturday and Sunday, of course. is a White Spot Family Fun Sunday, and the kids can run the bases following the final out. For a full schedule and the promotional schedule, check out CanadiansBaseball.com. I know you usually make it a habit of getting out to the net. Have you been out often this summer?
Not as much as I usually am, but the girls have been bugging me to get there, so we'll get out there. I mean, they've obviously picked it up. First half, played, won the first half, but I don't know if they're going to be able to catch Eugene here 9 games back, but should be a fun, exciting month to run towards the playoffs, and it's always a good time. I mean, the team is a fun team. They can hit. Got some really neat pitchers out there right now. You got it, and of course, everybody knows about you can have your foot long or your leg long or whatever they call it now.
Yeah,
and obviously lots of great options and good times there. And like I said, the fireworks. Who doesn't love a good fireworks show?
Hey, speaking of fireworks, how about the parent club? Blue Jays did a number on Colorado for the second straight game. 25 hits on Monday, 25 runs now in 2 games against the Rockies. Now, it is the Rockies. Are they even trying? That's the question I put to you. But 10-4 last night, showing no mercy for the worst team in baseball. I would say this to the Blue Jays: save some of that offense for later on in the road trip when they have to face the Dodgers in Los Angeles. But where do you come down on this Blue Jays team, this version of the Blue Jays?
I mean, I have, it's been a strange years. People know I used to be an A's guy, but I've set them aside. John Fisher did that to me. And I've come back to the Jays. Jays are the team of my, sort of my youth. And, listen, 2015, my wife, 2 mentions of my wife, Candace will tell you, she's not sure. The day I asked her to marry me in Italy, we ended up watching, that was the bat toss. That was game 5. Like, it was incredible. And I was, very excited at that moment. So, this team feels like they've got it. Every guy can hit the ball. Obviously that fantastic pitching rotation. And I mean, I ended up watching the last couple of games, just been, sitting down, putting them on and caught the end of the 25 hit show, caught the end of last night's it was 7-4 when I turned it on, and Louis Varland comes in, shuts things down, and the Jays just decide to just run away with the game. You're right. Are the Rockies actually trying to do something here? I feel bad. It's one of those ones where you feel bad for the players. These guys are doing their best. They are in the big leagues. This is where they want to be, and they are being set up to fail, and that is never a fun thing to be. But the Jays are having a lot of fun, and they're giving their fans plenty to enjoy, especially after a couple seasons where it didn't seem like they knew what they were doing. They were spinning their wheels. They definitely know what they're doing this year.
Speaking of giving fans a thrill, Victoria Mboko is back on the court tonight at the National Bank Open in Montreal. 18-year-old taking on the 9th seed Elena Rybakina, looking to punch her ticket to the final of our country's biggest tennis tournament. I mean, it has been great to see the buzz that this has created. Mboko, she's going to be tough tonight. Rybakina is a Wimbledon champ, as high as 3rd in the world rankings a couple of years ago. But this kid's on a roll. She's going to have the fans on her side. And you talk about playing with house money. You'd already knocked off the top seed in Coco Gauff. You roll through the quarterfinal, and here you are now playing the biggest match of your professional career. And look, we've seen other Canadians burst onto the scene, but most of them have had some degree of staying power. So we'll see if Victoria is the next in this long line of what has been sort of the golden age of Canadian tennis.
Absolutely golden age. I mean, last week Vasek Pospisil was retired, and I found myself thinking of those wonderful games in the Davis Cup more than a decade ago out at UBC, and here we are. This, Victoria Mboko looks like she could be the best one yet. I mean, we've obviously already got Leylah Fernandez out there, but it's an incredible time. It's been great to watch. I'm thrilled just to see how well we're doing. I mean, we've talked about think about all these different sports that Canadians are thriving at. It's a wonder. It's not just a golden age of Canadian tennis; it's a golden age of Canadian sport. And it's obviously Summer McIntosh last week at the Swimming Worlds, and every week right now we feel as we get a story, and it's not, we're used to these kind of stories coming up in the Olympics. It's not even an Olympic year for the Summer Olympics. Incredible collection of achievements by Canadian athletes, and it's exciting, it's thrilling, it's inspiring. We're doing something right, and I hope we keep doing it.
All right, let's take a look at yesterday's poll question. We asked you when Blake was here, does it matter to you that the Canucks don't have representation on Team Canada at the Olympics? Of course, the long list for this orientation camp coming out. Now, I mean, Could something miraculous happen in the first half of the season? Yeah, but no. I know. So the results to the poll question, 74.8. So 75% saying, nah, it doesn't matter. There were a quarter that said, yes, it does. James, it would be nice to have one of the top 20 Canadian players in the league, but it's a small amount of players, and less players going to the Olympics means more rested players. So I guess you can put that spin on it if it does keep some Canucks fresh for the stretch run to push for the playoffs. Adam says, specifically Team Canada, no, it's not like we really have had a bunch before, with the exceptions of Linden, Bertuzzi, and Luongo. So no, not a big deal to me. Now, the list is longer than that. Jovo, obviously, Dan Hamhuis represented Canada as well. So there have been a few more beyond the three that he mentioned. Zadorov's Ghost on X says, voting no, but it does matter to me that the team in general lacks CanCon. And we saw a fair bit of that in the responses as well. Further to that one, Richard said, how many Canadians do they have? 2? No, it's a few more than that as well. When you look at Jake DeBrusk, Tyler Myers, Evander Kane now, P.O. Joseph as well. I guess if Archie Baines is up with the team, he's Canadian as well. But the point is made, and we hear it an awful lot that, the way that this group has been constructed, they have elected to look and, far afield, United Nations, essentially, down at Rogers Arena. So I hear the people that say, not enough Canadians, but at the end of the day, I said it yesterday too, if they can manage to build a Stanley Cup winner, I don't think people are going to give a damn where the players come from. They just want to cheer on the best possible version of the Vancouver Canucks.
Well, and I look at, I always feel like that's a criticism of too many Americans. I know it's also a criticism of too many Swedes, but this is a very American team. And I go through the list of players, and they're almost all fan favorites, like Brock Besser, Connor Garland. I'm skipping over Drew O'Connor, probably skipping over Derek Forbort. But, Thatcher Demko, Quinn Hughes, Kiefer Sherwood. Are these all guys that people don't want? Because that's what we're talking about. I suppose, okay, you'd rather have a Canadian version of Derek Forbort. Do we really think that moves the meter? A Canadian version of Drew O'Connor, does that really move the meter? I never quite know what they're arguing for. I guess they're mad at EP40, and I get that.
Yeah.
Are they really
want a team? They want a team of Sam Bennett's.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, of course, Florida had a Finn as a captain and a Russian as a goaltender, and Americans, Matthew Tkachuk, among others. So again, we're at a point now. I see it and I hear it an awful lot. I still think it's a question of constructing the best possible team and scouring bushes all over the world to find the best players ultimately that could someday deliver a Stanley Cup here to the city of Vancouver. Errors and omissions from yesterday. I think we had a relatively clean sheet as far as outright mistakes go, but we did have a little bit of a logistical issue yesterday. I don't know if you caught this, but John Shannon was delayed. He was out on the golf course. So
he's been doing that a lot lately.
Yeah, no. Well, we sort of did the show out of order, at least the live part. The podcast was fine. If you watched the podcast, you probably didn't know anything. But that is the beauty of podcasting. You can piece it all together at the end of the day, and Mike Rogerson does an expert job of that. So I don't know if it was an error or an omission, just a different way of doing business. But I do think, I feel like even though Matt and Blake aren't around, we do have things back on track today. We are back again on Thursday. It's going to be you and me to wrap up short weeks here in the month of August. So Thursday will be and this has been a really short week because there was no show on Monday as well. But we'll be back on Thursday. Frank Corrado is going to join us for his weekly appearance here on S&P. So always good chatting with Frank. In the meantime, be sure to follow us on all our social channels, subscribe to our YouTube page, and if you have the chance, please support the sponsors and the partners that support all of us here at the Nation Network. Thanks so much for checking out today's episode of Sekeres and Price. PJ and I back tomorrow. The boys will return from vacation on Monday.